Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm Karan Kukreja, the project director for the Cyber Warriors Conclave. Thank you all for taking your time to join us. Today, we are connecting with the senior executives responsible for protecting their company's critical infrastructures with innovative solution providers and information security experts. We will learn from them how to protect and defend our businesses from cyber attacks during interactive panels and fast track discussions. Thank you to our sponsors, SafeTech Innovations, GreenGate, Mimecast, and Assembly. The conclave will start off with a presentation on a holistic approach for securing your medical and IoT devices by Assembly, followed by a panel discussion on security management for the Internet of Medical Things, moderated by Assembly and panelists from Prime Healthcare Group, Johns Hopkins Aramco Healthcare, Astor Hospitals, and Medcare Hospitals and Medical Centers, followed by another panel discussion on cyber attacks in the healthcare industry, moderated by Mimecast and panelists from Prime Healthcare Group, Astor Hospitals, King's College Hospitals London from UAE, and Ministry of Health and Populations from Egypt. I would now like to call upon Mr. Luke Smith, the Director of Solution Engineering from Assembly. The screen is all yours, Luke.
Thank you so much. Can you see my screen, sir?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Thanks so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Luke Smith, Director of Solution Engineering at Assembly, and I look forward to meeting with you today. We're going to talk today about a holistic approach to securing your medical and IoT devices. And this is not a trivial task. And I want to kind of paint a picture of what we're faced with today and how we can start to solve this problem. And I want to start out by talking about the current landscape in healthcare. So right now today, there are roughly around 10,000 network capable medical device models, around 100,000 plus network capable IoT device models in circulation today. Roughly about 20 to 30% of medical devices in any given organization are connected. Now, this is to say that there's still really a large portion of our medical devices that are not yet connected to the network. However, by 2025, that estimate rises considerably to around 65%. So we have a growing surface of attack. Right now, roughly about 25% of cyber attacks involve medical devices. But again, that is growing by 5 times within the next 4 years. It is estimated that over the next 5 years, healthcare organizations will spend an additional $125 billion, that's billion with a B, to try to secure this growing attack surface. And this is further complicated by the sheer scope of the attack that's going on. Right now, we've seen a 390% growth in the number of CVEs published annually over the last decade. That's a massive uptick in CVEs. Last year, roughly 50 CVEs were published or disclosed per day. So in many organizations, this has just become, it's growing so fast that really people can't keep up. Nearly 4,000 vulnerabilities last year were really described or disclosed as the worst of the worst. These are, really very dangerous vulnerabilities. And 57% were classified as critical or high severity. 68%, again, with no user interaction required. So again, not a phishing attempt. Nobody had to click on anything. These, again, exploits are being able to be executed without interaction. So what does this really mean for medical device security, and how are our traditional methods of dealing with these attacks, how do those really fare when we're talking about medical and IoT devices? And the reality of it is there are some issues, there are some shortcomings with how we typically go about trying to attack this problem. The first is really deploying endpoints. And I've heard multiple people say, hey, I want to deploy an endpoint solution to manage my medical devices. In many cases, that's just not possible. Endpoint solutions can void the manufacturer warranty for the medical device. They can also cause the device to malfunction. In some cases, it's not possible just because of the operating system that is on that medical device or that IoT/OT solution. When we talk about patching, this is again another common struggle. Often these medical devices run older operating systems. We see a lot of Windows 7, Windows XP. I've even seen Windows Vista out there. And what that means is that even though a manufacturer such as Windows or Microsoft Windows may have released a patch, it doesn't necessarily mean that I can deploy the patch. Manufacturers have to support the patch in order for me to be able to deploy it, or again, I'm in a situation where I could void a warranty or cause the device to malfunction. In some cases, it can take manufacturers years to approve a patch. And in some cases, service contracts are required and can often be very expensive in order for me to even get the patch. So patching is not always something that is feasible. Obviously, if we can patch, we should. But again, being able to understand that can be difficult. Number 3, actively scanning a medical device using an active scanning tool. And there are many out there. These are traditional tools we do see in the arsenal of many IT professionals. The frank problem here is that active scanning can cause patient impacts. We have seen medical devices actually malfunction, restart, reset, whilst being actively scanned by a tool. And this means that traditional IT tools can actually be a liability, especially if not properly used. And one of the things, again, I'll talk a little bit more as we move on, but one of the things that Simile does to support this, because it's again about how can I make these traditional tools effective, or how can we support their use? We actually, in our tool set, we collect utilization data. We're able to tell the IT team when are medical devices actively being used by a patient, and then feed that data back into the active scanning solution so that they can scan the device whilst it is not being used by a patient. So there are ways to do this, but again, it's about fitting the pieces together so that, again, these tools can become smarter, more effective. The last thing I want to talk about is a really big concept, segmenting every device. And Similarly, ourselves are big believers in the zero trust sec paradigm. However, there are some issues. And one, eventually this kind of segment every device approach creates really network infrastructure overload. There's just an enormous amount of access control lists. There's a high cost in both manpower as well as complexity in trying to not only architect zero trust, but then maintain it, especially over a period of time as, again, large number of devices, the number of devices are just increasing. And then even if I segment a device, that does not address issues or exploitable vulnerabilities for services that I have to leave open. So even if I've segmented a device, again, I'm restricting what that device is going to communicate with over what ports and services. and to what other devices in your network, that does not address a known vulnerability over a service I have to leave open, right? So the struggle here is that it can reduce the risk. However, it's, again, something that really needs to be put in its sphere. And until I understand what vulnerabilities are exploitable, it still does not solve the underlying problem. So when we look at this, realistically, a holistic approach needs to be taken. We need to understand, how do all of these tools fit together? How can we enable their use and really make sure that we're not making a situation worse? And so we really recommend that, again, a holistic approach, that a tool that can really unite all of these disparate traditional IT solutions together and really provide that kind of hub and spoke framework to secure the environment, allowing the active scanning tools to, again, work better, feeding the proper data into the SIM or SOC, again, populating data around asset management, and then integrating with NAC and other network tools to properly enable mitigation. So how does this work? The reality of it is, at its cornerstone, we need to understand exploitable vulnerabilities. We need to understand what their impact is. See, not all vulnerabilities are exploitable. And if a vulnerability is not exploitable to an organization, well, then it's not a risk to that organization. And for the most part, I can move on. So we really recommend the use of a tool that does industry standard exploit analysis. That analysis needs to be performed, again, based on things like the MITRE ATT&CK framework, to understand which of the vulnerabilities that apply in your environment are actually exploitable. And then we would recommend following the following steps, and then, of course, leveraging integration and existing tools where appropriate. So what are these steps? First and foremost, if it's possible, we should patch. Again, if a patch is available, if you have a service contract, if there's a patch out there, apply it. If you can't apply a patch, then we need to look at, how do we mitigate the exploitable, the exploit vector for that vulnerability. And we'll take a look at what this looks like. Now, if I can't mitigate the vulnerability, if it's not possible to mitigate the exploit vector, then let's look at segmentation and microsegmentation and apply segmentation where appropriate, right? Again, is it possible for me to segment every single device in my network? And even if it was possible, can I really maintain that sort of monstrosity? So it's really around, as we say, defense in depth, applying the appropriate measures where I can, and then leveraging, again, the tools that are in the environment to bring all those things together. So Assimile actually takes, using us as an example, we actually take a four-pronged approach to this problem. First off, when we talk about scanning, we do passive scanning. Passive scanning, again, uses things like AI, deep packet inspection, but it's passive collection of data, not the active interrogation of a device. So pulling all of that data together, right? Again, correlating all that data together passively enables me to ensure no patient impacts. Two, we actually apply a MITRE ATT&CK-based exploit analysis. We look at how devices are connected together. How can an attacker actually exploit a vulnerability in a particular environment? Because again, it is about your environment. Can an attacker exploit a vulnerability in your environment? And again, we've actually analyzed over 1 million vulnerabilities using this model, actually every single vulnerability since 1995. It's a massive amount of attack analysis that we've done over the years. And that's, again, a key concept to take into account. This is about understanding how attacks take place, and then again, leveraging that understanding to understand how do I mitigate and we'll talk about that when we get to step 4, how do we block those exploit vectors? And step 3 here in prioritization of impacts, Assembly actually takes that data. We incorporate data about the medical device. So things like the manufacturer disclosure statement for medical device security. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with MDS2s or MDS squares, these are a document that medical device manufacturers are required to produce for each medical device model. And it outlines the security capabilities of that medical device. So again, when we talk about the difference between tools that are purpose-built for medical and IoT device security, they are taking into account unique information about that medical device that a traditional IT tool will not have. And so when you have the capabilities, and when we look at the type of data that is in MDS2 data, this can incorporate things like, can you deploy antivirus or anti-malware to that medical device? That data is often contained in the MDS2. But having that data and incorporating it into your risk assessment automatically enables you to start protecting these medical devices. So again, there's a wealth of information in an MDS2. We need to have something that is pulling that data together and enabling us to search it, and of course, incorporating that into the risk assessment process for you. So this enables tools to properly prioritize. Again, I often say it's not enough to have a giant list of vulnerabilities. I really need to understand first and foremost, which of those vulnerabilities are exploitable, and then how do I prioritize those vulnerabilities based on their impact to the organization. This again enables an organization to focus on where are the critical vulnerabilities, how can they reduce the risks to the organization as fast and as effectively as possible. And then the last step here again is recommendations and workarounds. So understanding what's exploitable, we need to have again clinically viable risk mitigation recommendations and workarounds to how can I reduce that risk? How can I, of course, again, making sure that they're clinically viable, that they're not going to impact the use of that medical device is, again, absolutely key. And this is, again, where specialized tools can make a benefit and help you to understand how to secure those medical and IoT devices. So these are the things that we would look for in a solution that we would recommend as part of your approach, incorporating these different tenets into your assessment process, whether you're doing this manually or whether you're doing relying on tools. These are really the key concepts to incorporate. Now, I also want to talk about managing across the life cycle of the device. This, again, is also another key concept. We need to get to the point where we are managing medical devices in the same way that we have always managed IT devices. And you'll notice that I'm referring to them in two separate concepts. These are not the same thing. Even though a medical device may be running a version of Windows, it does not make it a Windows device. And the rules are different. And so I need to, again, from pre-procurement, as much as possible, I need to understand what the risk of a medical device is to the organization, if possible, before I purchase it. So incorporating risk assessment capabilities into your procurement process is absolutely recommended. We should ask the question, what is the risk of this device before I purchase it? Again, security really begins at procurement. And again, we would also recommend, understanding how do you harden these devices? How do you model that risk? managing that medical device as you connect that device into your network, and then all the way through to decommissioning, understanding what type of data is on that device. Does it have biometric data? Is there patient data on there? Financial information, again, enables you to properly secure and decommission these devices so that you can, again, manage these across the life cycle. So we really have just a few minutes remaining. I want to turn this open for any questions and answers that we may have. Are there any questions?
We have one question, Luke. Would you be able to pick it up, or you want me to just read it out for you?
Yeah, could you read it, please? I can't see.
Yeah. So it's on, do you support on premise deployment?
Do we support on what, sorry, then?
Do you support on premise deployment?
Premise deployment.
Yes, yeah. Quite great question. Yes, absolutely, we do. So this is, again, another key concept. Data sovereignty laws exist where data cannot leave a particular country, and Assembly absolutely supports this concept. We do both on-premise deployment as well as cloud-based deployments. So yeah, absolutely, it's a great question. We want to be able to respect all of the data sovereignty laws and maintain the data in country. So yeah, definitely not a problem. Great question. Any others before I turn it back over? All right.
Yeah. In case we have any questions, we will pass it on to you, Luke, by email. So next up, we have a panel discussion on the security management for the Internet of Medical Things, which is going to be moderated by Mr. Shankar, the CEO for Assembly. Over to you, Shankar.
Thanks a lot, Karan. Hi, everyone. I'm Shankar, CEO of Assembly. As a quick context, Assembly is a healthcare-focused inventory, cybersecurity, operation management solution, and it's used by health systems of all sizes. So today I have a few esteemed panelists with me. I would like each of them to introduce yourself. So I'll start with you, Mr. Padam. If you can take a minute to introduce yourself, then that'll be great. Padam, are you there?
I think he's still trying to connect. Maybe we can start off with Baha and Jalil.
Yeah, sounds great. Baha, Mr. Baha, if you can introduce yourself directly.
Hi guys, my name is Baha Sainer. I've been in the healthcare IT junction for over 25 years, working with different hospitals from a vendor side, implementing EMRs, and at the same time on the provider side with Medcare Hospital Group for the last 2 years, running overall IT infrastructure, IT solutions, security, and all of the details of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Baha. Mr. Jalil, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself next?
Thank you, Shankar. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jalil Rahman. I'm the head of IT director for Prime Healthcare Group. So Prime has hospitals, clinics, diagnostic centers, pharmacies, and home care. I've been in the industry, in the IT industry, for more than almost 25 years, or a little more than 25 years now. And healthcare, I've with Prime for the last 6 years. Before that, I was in the pharmaceutical industry with Glaxo for a little more than 8 years. And earlier to that, I was in the insurance with Adnek Abu Dhabi National Insurance Company for almost 10 years. So, I've seen healthcare from different perspectives. So that's me and the quick introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Padam. Next, Mr. Abdul Rahman, can you provide a quick introduction about yourself?
My name is Abdurrahman Mazrour. I'm working as a cybersecurity operation manager now in healthcare industry, and I was CISO for many different healthcare organizations. I'm working in IT field more than 15 years, and including cyber
security and management position. I'm externally advisory for many universities in Saudi Arabia to enhance the cybersecurity materials and the whole curriculum in the university in Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Mr. Abdul Rahman. And finally, Mr. Padam, if you can provide a quick introduction about yourself, a 1-minute introduction, that'll be great.
Hi, good morning everyone from Dubai. So my name is Padam Sundar Kavle. I'm heading IT and automation for Esther Hospitals UAE. So primarily my job role is to ensure the hospital, the automation is on track, and it is from the infra to the application, right? So the background, I am a software developer. I have above 14 years experience in software development. So in the Dubai, almost it's 8 years now, I'm with Esther Hospitals.
Thank you so much. So thanks everyone again for joining. You can see we have a very experienced panel with us. So I want to walk over a few questions that we would love for the audience to know. So I'll start with you, Mr. Padam. So when you talk about medical device security, the first thing that everybody talks about globally is inventory. And one of the challenges is, how do you really keep track of your inventory? Because there's so many IoT devices, connected medical devices across so many manufacturers. How does an organization even start with keeping track of their inventory? What do you do? So over to you, Mr. Padam.
Yeah. So basically, if you see, right, in past, I think 4 to 5 years, the use of IoT is really huge, right? From the medical, the invasive devices or non-invasive devices, everything now, even in the other hand, we have the application, the lot of applications, the mobile applications which are connected to the network. So in Esther Hospital, what we have done is there are 2-3 different approaches we have taken. One is just for everyone knowledge that Esther Hospital UAE is the first hospital in UAE which has a complete data center in the cloud. So we are complete into the Microsoft Azure cloud. So this enables us to have a centralized monitoring service because we are not dependent with the on-prem servers or the individual servers. The secondary is all the IoT devices are under the MDM. So it is something called the mobile device management, where we apply our IT policies for the security and etc. So there is another centralized monitoring. And the third is in the inventory tracking. So we have something called the 5 months down the line or 6 months down the line. So what are the devices are registered in our premises, and what are the consumption or what are the utilization for those devices. So we have kind of a system which can tell us the past 6 months or 1 year down the period what is the utilization of the devices, where these devices are. So it point into the location, right? So basically this system allow us to basically track our inventory in the day-to-day basis, and or maybe when we have audits, so we can simply open the portal and we can find out where the devices are, what are the utilization, what is the device health, right? So the cloud platform is something that is helping us to track our inventory. Yeah.
Thank you. So you're using a combination of an MDM and a location tracking system effectively. Thank you.
Exactly. So recently we moved with the Microsoft Intune. So that is something that it gives you the endpoint end-to-end solution, which gives you the inventory tracking. It gives you the inventory security, so the device security and device policies, and the patch management. So everything is in the single umbrella now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Padam. That's interesting. Mr. Jalil, I'll go to you next. If you can throw some light on the inventory management problem and give your views, that'll be great.
Yeah, so I think it's very similar. We do have an inventory management system all across the group, specifically for biomedical equipments, right? So whether it's including IOMT devices, or even if it's not managed, because right, just like what we had in the previous discussions, if the device is not connected, we might still have a supporting PC with an older version operating system and things like that. So there is an entire asset management. We do use that one for quite a number of years now, and it's across the group and it's accessible from anywhere across the group. So it's easier. So it not only does the asset tracking, it also actually maintains the plant maintenance and other activities done on the device. So the whole history of activities done on the device, in terms of whether it be plant maintenances or any other activities, including the downtime of the devices available on that. So the reports are available on how long it was down. Again, some of our devices also have a, if not all, at least some on the radiology side, we have an utilization analysis as well for most of the devices. I know the utilizations of these devices as well on a BI which runs on top of this data, right? So that's what is done in terms of the specific to asset tracking, which I think is required in current days, as you rightly said. There's a lot of devices, and we're not talking about asset tracking in terms of the financial depreciation of the assets. We're talking about the physical asset tracking, including where the location of the asset is, and the details of the asset, whether what IPs they are on, what is the last maintenance done, what is the last configuration change done to it, and things like that. So at any given time, actually know what's the current status of that device.
No, thank you. That's very interesting. That you've been already doing it for a few years, so that's pretty advanced. So that's great. And Mr. Baha, if you can actually give some perspective from your side on the topic, I'm sure the audience love to hear.
I mean, I think it's already been discussed most of the ways the asset is being tracked by my other colleagues. I think the key there is that these medical devices with the digital transformation, there are rapid developments and advancements, and new devices are coming out. They appear just like a traditional IT, but we know that there are differences and they are susceptible to the threats. So like Padam said, we're also keeping track of these assets where they are. But more importantly, I think besides the asset tracking, one of the important part of it is that keeping a bit of almost like a record, a living record of what known risks are available or been recorded against this device based on make and model, so that this can kind of help us prioritize as to what needs to be patched up, what needs to be done as a priority per se. So that's kind of how we're operating.
No, that's great. That's great, Mr. Baha. And you actually have almost set the base for the next question around vulnerability management, which I'll start with you, Mr. Abdul Rahman. So, we spoke about the inventory problem and we spoke about the heterogeneity. But of course, you heard Luke talk about, vulnerabilities. There are almost 50 vulnerabilities getting published daily. And there are not many patches being published by medical device manufacturers. Our assembly, we did the study and we found that for every patch, there are almost 1,000 to 5,000 vulnerabilities getting published, if you look at globally manufacturers. So when you have one patch for every 1,000 to 5,000, depending on the manufacturer vulnerabilities, how are you mapping these vulnerabilities to the medical devices, and how are you prioritizing which ones to really go after?
And it's really complex question with the Internet of Medical Things, and in healthcare organization, we are working with many devices already shipped with their own vulnerabilities before the start is working. Also, we are receiving many vulnerabilities without any patches built by the vendor itself. With unmanaged Internet of Medical Things devices, and with less visibility that happen in the healthcare, we cannot to control these vulnerabilities. Because of that, we need to increase the visibility of the medical devices. This provide us more visibility about the vulnerabilities and how to make priorities, not only based on the CVs that receive from the the third party, or from the vulnerabilities that we catch from the compliance system. We need to make our priority based on the network behavior and how many users to access this, and what the impact of the business when we are made our prioritize of this medical devices. Security team find usually extremely challenges to secure these devices with the long life cycle. What I usually recommend in our healthcare organization, we need to focus about the operational benefit and also the management benefit. If you are increase the visibility of the Internet of Medical Things, especially when we are limit operation about the huge vulnerability in some devices, and also increase the visibility from the external, from the secure devices. Now in medical side, on healthcare side, this is not impact about the data only. This is part from the patient safety. Because of that, we are working to reduce this of the risk that's happened for the medical devices. We need to increase the awareness, and we made the knowledge management program for the all healthcare employees to work with the cybersecurity team to reduce this number of the abnormal behavior or attitude from the employees itself. All this measurement we need to be considering when we are start to brutalize our vulnerabilities, and how to control those vulnerabilities until we catch the batches in the medical devices. Other things, we have to build the Internet of Medical Things with the access control management system. This is also minimize the risk it's happened from unauthorized person to access the devices. Many controls development monthly now to control the healthcare organization. The healthcare organization now the second industrial in the world, received the number of attack in the last article that received from the NCA. We need to continue the control and list this number of vulnerabilities by also communicate with the vendor itself to build clear service level agreement together that's impact the service. If not follow this service level agreement, and we can to control which data health exchange to using in an external when you are use medical devices. This is in general what I can to answer your question. And still we need a dedicated team to continue working as a compliance in the Internet of Medical Things services, and also the medical devices from the on-premises services. This is dedicated because this is around 60% from the devices in healthcare organization, this related medical devices, and this is impact the patient directly. This is
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Abdul Rahman. And you made some very interesting points about how you're prioritizing using network data about doing some of this at procurement itself by working with the manufacturers. So I think these are excellent points. I'll go to you, Mr. Baha. You had actually started on this topic already in your previous answer, and you had spoken about some of your prioritization. If you can answer the same question and shed some light about how you guys prioritize in terms of what prioritization techniques do you use on figuring out which vulnerabilities and devices to go after, a little more detail, I think I'm sure people will be benefited with that answer.
I think there's really, the reality is, as we discussed earlier, we're a bit maybe spoiled getting vulnerability fixes from Microsoft within X many hours or X many days. And like we've discussed, this isn't the way it's working with a lot of the medical device manufacturers, right? So you're not going to get it your patch Tuesdays, or you're not going to get your emergency fixes if you get it every 6 months. That's what it may be. So one thing is definitely understanding what those priorities are, how they are impacting, how they are openly exposed in the out there, and having that insight just to be able to understand it. But I think what I was going to mention is another technique that we're using is, like you mentioned, of course, at the procurement side, kind of assessing that's another one. But once all of those are said and done, and now you have this in your environment, I think one of the traditional, maybe more of a legacy technique is network segmentation. Again, a limited success it will give you, but it's definitely better than not having any, right? But more importantly, we have recently been definitely been having different trials of AI-based network detection, network traffic detection systems. I think I'm seeing that quite intriguing, being able to, because these systems have capabilities, being able to understand what a regular traffic is, what an unusual traffic is, and then they're able to give you all these warnings about, when things are going haywire, and then it's drawing your attention to what's happening, so you can go really look at it. Because a lot of ways to tackle cybersecurity seems to be around building bigger defenses, right, around the perimeter. But the key question has always been, well, always assume somebody is inside your perimeter. So how do you know it? What do you do about it? And because none of everything that you've built around it, all the firewalls, all the endpoint protections, whatever, they're going to get breached, and now they're breached. How do you know what's going on inside? And some of the there are different of course solutions are out there, and I'm finding it very, very intriguing what they're able to tell you. And again, that's without a person necessarily running analysis, but rather the AI is running through all sorts of different logs and all sorts of different data that's being fed into it, and trying to make a meaningful sense out of that data. So I think that's another way to kind of help until that patch is available for you to be able to keep an eye on your devices, right?
Yes, no, absolutely. And I think this AI-based point is a very important thing, because there are a lot of these devices, these medical and IoT devices, they have some form of deterministic behavior. And so the ability to baseline that and use that as a way to detect when something is going wrong can help you get early indicators of compromise, which is really a very good point. Mr. Padam, love to hear your opinions from a prioritization, and identification perspective. How are you guys doing it? Clearly, you have some very sophisticated ways for tracking and keeping track of inventory. So how are you guys going about vulnerability management?
Yeah. So like Baha mentioned just before, right? See, I was reading one quote yesterday. So someone was writing, the IT system and children are same, right? They behave very well when you are monitoring than when you are not looking into that, then they start misbehaving, right? So this is the one thing that, so what as IT professional, we always face this challenges, right? When you are monitoring, everything works perfectly fine, but when you are not monitoring, then things start misbehaving. So the BA started with the AI based, the packet monitoring system, right? So that is something I think one is the very the good expect that we are going to trial in coming days. For now, what we do is, we adopted something called the zero trust, right? We don't trust anyone, even to our own employee, we don't trust, right? So we start the blacklisting everything and the whitelisting what is required. So especially when we talk about the IoMT, the medical devices are required. Those devices not need to access by so many people, right? So there are certain applications or certain the people who may need to access. So we first blacklist everything and we only allow the access for those people, so that the 80 to 90% vulnerability we are already covered up, right? Now, from the tracking point of view, so because the good thing what we have is from the MDM, we have a mobile device security system also. So because all the compatible the IoMT devices are onboarded with the MDM solution. So the MDM solution has a capability to scan and say, hey, so this device is behaving unusual than what other devices are behaving, or this device is actually requesting more packets or the more data as compared to other devices, right? So there is a monitoring system, and it is configured with our the IT professional, the email ID or the SMS system, so where they can get the immediate notification and they can look into that. So the one which I mentioned earlier, that Intune, we are migrating something called the Microsoft Intune, which is complete the security for the organization, which even for the desktop it applies, but we are currently monitoring into the mobile devices, those inclusive of our IoMT or other non-medical mobile devices also. So there is a capability to scan the periodic scan, right? So the role-based access, the device access, who all are needed, right? So if we are opening for everyone, then there will be more chance of getting things missed. So we are only giving the we are following the role-based access management, and of course the Intune is giving us the every day or every minute packet statistics. And because our network is started, all the devices are connected to the Azure networks from the hospital side. So we have another layer of firewall, something called the WAF, the web application firewall, which is from again the Microsoft Azure. So that is again making us one more the checkpoints where the WAF can filter the request, and it can say, okay, so these IPs are actually requesting the more data, whether it is usual request or it is unusual request. So the people can review and they can release if it is required, or they can block.
Yeah, that sounds great. Now, thanks a lot, Mr. Padam. And I think these are really important points. I did have some follow-on questions on your use of MDM for monitoring medical devices. I'll come back to it if you have time at the end. But I want to go to Mr. Jalil. We have already moved from, prioritizing to mitigation. So, would love to hear your thoughts on how you guys are mitigating your environments. And a lot of these mitigation techniques that Mr. Padam and Baha and Abdul Rahman spoke about are, proactive techniques in some ways, whether it's segmentation or MDM or so on. Love to hear what you guys are doing and how you see the problem from your view.
I'll make a comment on the previous question as well in terms of priorities, because I think we were talking about priorities. So, or how do you prioritize once a vulnerability is known? So I think one of the key things that we do in terms of, when the vulnerability is known, of course, we do have from the assets, we know what assets we have. And once there's a vulnerability known, there's a separate biomedical, or bioengineering team. So we sit with them and, we understand what is the impact. First of all, similar to what we've just heard from the others, we do, I'll come to that, we do have certain ways of working or certain policies defined in the network and certain controls. So the first question is, are we already protected because of these controls? And if we are not, the next question is, what is the impact, right? What exposure are we talking about? What is the impact, and can it be exploited, right? So I think based on these answers is how we prioritize on what needs to be done. Right. So that's the priority part of it. In terms of what is being done is, and I think we've heard, and I think this is the normal practice these days, and it's quite interesting to see what you're doing differently in terms of assembly and what Luke presented. We have a combination of network segmentation, so we do have a separate VLAN for the these kind of devices. So we and not only medical, IOMT, we have even other IoT devices like even a CCTV camera. So we have a separate, we don't mix all of these. We have each of them in a separate VLANs. That's one part of it. That's a network segmentation we talk about, and then on top of that we have a NAC, right? So we have an access control, network access control as well in place. So where we have done profiling of these devices. So that clearly tells us that if it's this kind of device, this is what it needs, and that's all it gets, right? And also it's who needs to access it. So some of them are defined. So that's what I meant by when we know about a vulnerability, we look at, okay, are these controls already taking care of this, right? In terms of, what is the risk that we have currently? Has the risk level changed? Is the impact going to be different? And if there's a, it's going to be different, then we sit down and talk about it, and we involve the right teams, because as I said, the biomedical engineering or the biomedical team is more equipped in terms of the knowledge and, other things around this. So we actually sit down with them and say, okay, what differently we need to do, because as we rightly said, patches really take a long time to come, unlike our normal, the IT world that we've been used to. It's very different in the IOMT cases. I think Baha said 6 months. I would say we are lucky even if we get something in 6 months. It sometimes goes beyond that, because the life cycle of these devices are not like what we see in current IT systems, right? The life cycle is really, really huge, and operating systems change. A lot of things change, during these times. So that's what is really done in terms of control. So of course there is patch management in place, there is WAF in place, but these are all one level higher. Right? When you look at the lower network side of it, is the network segmentation and the NAC, which actually helps us in controlling this. On top of that, what we are now currently doing is the real-time analysis of and I think we are all on the same stage of analyzing this, or doing. Because the new technologies are available. So if you talk about SOC and other things, extending the capability of SOC to actually look at logs and network behaviors of these kind of devices as well, so that we can be proactive in terms of, if something is currently happening, than being reactive once we, have an incident and then start looking at the incident, right? So that's something that we are all moving into in terms of, a SOC kind of an environment to include IOMT devices or IOMT traffics as well.
No, that is great. And you actually made an important point about exploitability. Our entire thing at Assembly, the entire company, we started with the ability to predict proactively where the exploits are going to come from for medical and IoT devices. So we look at a medical device and we actually predict where are the different parts for an attacker to that device, whether it's medical or IoT device, into that network. And then we tell you these are the exploit parts and this is the impact and this is how you can minimize it, which is where health systems are moving to. So you can focus on what you really need to. And then you use AI-based techniques to baseline it, profile it, and figure out when things are wrong.
Yeah. No, I really see a value in that, because as I said, today this is a very manual kind of thing. Right. I don't think there's a lot of automated tools to actually tell us for IoMT types of devices in terms of exploitability, right? Because there is general for IT, but I think specific to that, and I again say IOMT, where medical devices is not alone. This is happening because a lot of edge computing is being talked about today, whether it be as I said, CCTV cameras or anything that is IoT enabled. Now we're moving into edge computing, where analysis and a lot of other actions are taken at the edge. So the similar thing is going to happen all across IoT. What we are now discussing around IOMT.
Yes, absolutely. No, I agree. There are a lot of unique things about some of these devices as well. So we'd love to have more discussion on that. Sure. So I want to, we have spent a good amount of time discussing some of the technology. I want to take it one step higher. So this question is to you, Mr. Abdul Rahman. We are in a world where obviously there's a lot of conflicting priorities. Health systems have 100 things going on at the same time. It's not just cybersecurity, it's not just IoT. And so how do you, as a healthcare organization which is providing patient clinical care, how can we relate these cyber threats to direct patient care and public health so people understand what we are doing? People actually grasp like what is the importance of this in compared to every other priority. So how do you really relate this, and how do you make your team understand the importance?
This question exactly what I'm trying to explain to all healthcare. I part of it. Now we cannot say continue the cybersecurity only to protect the information or protect the network inside with the three clear pillars: this confidentiality and integrity, with the increase the availability. Now in healthcare, this time to say this is part from the patient safety with all transformation digital that's happened now in the world. Technology service in hospital became a core services by itself. Most patient care system depend on directly on advanced technology. Example, HIS system. This is used for the care documentation and ordering medication in most hospitals. Also, the modern medical devices and imaging, automated pharmacies, all core services that impact patient care directly. In addition, the healthcare technology is now transformation into connected with the Internet of Medical Things to convince us to make more control in our medical devices to save the patient life. I need to say here example. It's happened in the September 2020 in Germany. This is hospital in Düsseldorf. This is a result. This is first cybersecurity attack resulted in death of patient who has receiving critical resistant care in the emergency department. This incident, considered now the first direct patient death result from the cyber attack. That's mean that the scope of the work cybersecurity healthcare is not only protect infrastructure and information, the same what I said, and also not only implement the control or transfer them unmanaged devices to be managed devices. This all of these to mitigate the risk, but we need all the time to alignment with the patient safety. This is data privacy, also the expand the patient to be safe and protection. I think this different between if someone hacked computer or someone impact the human lives. Now with all this previous critical that's patient safety, it's now we need to stop because this is real happened in the last year in the Germany. This is what happened, this impact directly for the patient life. Because of that, we need to change the educate, the part of the knowledge of the importance of the cyber security in healthcare. And also, this is not only healthcare. With the Internet of Things now, maybe it's impact in another area that's related to healthcare. But I'm focused on the healthcare because now it's deal directly with the patients with all this robots and all the automated AI business machine learning. This is what's happened now to help us to make some decision in healthcare side. All of these measurement we need to be implement all the required control. The same my colleague Jalil mentioned about many controls that you need to be implemented, include the NAC and also all the network behavior detection response or endpoint detection response. But still we need to control the medical devices from the different perspective, and also we have sharing who's owner of this devices, to be the second victim of any hack happen in the medical devices. You know, this is not easy for anyone to be part from any impact for the patient directly. This is what I can to answer this part and from the healthcare perspective.
No, it's a great answer. And I think the Düsseldorf one is an interesting one because that one has accelerated the regulations in Germany from what we have seen, and in general in Europe as well. Which actually takes me to you, Mr. Baha. I mean, I'll take it one level higher and say, you know, let's say you have an executive in front of you, you have all these cybersecurity initiatives. How do you convince them to invest more? I recently spoke to a board level member of a hospital, and they said, how good is good enough cybersecurity? Where does this end? So how do you really make a case to invest more in conflicting priorities?
I mean, yes, there's definitely the question of where does it end, and it doesn't. And I think the key there is you have to have, as part of your strategy, you have to have one of the items on it has to be, A, what are you doing today? But B, what are you going to be changing, or what other new technologies or new ways that you're going to be looking into, and the investment that's needed for that. Now, that could be on tools, that could be on manpower, that could be on managed services, etc. And I think the more important question is, how do you get their buy-in? I think there's the particular example we just heard, as well as a lot of different cyber attacks. Because I think if you look at the what type of damage these things can cause, I think it's easily justifies why you have to be on the protected side rather than just riding the wave, I guess. That would be the other side of it, which you wouldn't want to be. But no, from that point of view, definitely we are getting the support for these types of investments. Although, again, the difficulty is always these things you cannot really see a tangible outcomes, as in this isn't like you're investing in and then there's some results that here's a business growth or something. But it is about hardening. It is about I think they're all understanding at this point, specifically within all the incidents that happened and all the headlines happened within the last couple of years around, that this is as simple as keeping the lights on. And that's typically the example that I go back to. Part of our job, yes, there are all these other things around digital transformation and all these other things, but as part of just keeping the lights on involves having more investments into these types of technologies, because this is unfortunately where it is, the actors out there, the bad actors out there, is always coming up with newer ways and innovative ways of breaching our defenses, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. And I think this is keeping ahead of the attackers is a continuous game. It never stops. And I think that's the next level of understanding that a lot of people need to get. I think we're running short of time, but I have a couple of quick questions I want to get in. One is to you, Mr. Jalil. We have spoken a lot about technology. We have spoken about the need to keep up. But the problem is there aren't enough resources keeping up. There's always a constant shortage of people who understand cybersecurity. So how do you really fill this gap when there is a need, there is technology, but you need people to use the technology, you need people to understand it, you need people to operate it. How do you fill this gap?
Yeah, I think that I touched upon a couple of things. One point at least, if in my previous one there, there are certain center of excellences. If you look at, biomedical equipments are not something that IT is an expert on, and on the way around, they are not the ones who are expert on security. So it's a collective exercise. We started some time back, a few years back, in terms of even we used to call it even a tech forum, where we actually exchange information between these teams. And some of these were some of the topics that we discussed. It didn't go for a long time, but I think that's something we're going to restart now again. because it is a time where people have to collaborate on different expertise in terms of sharing this, because if you work in silos, then it is going to be an issue. So that's one part of it. The second part of it, as I said, the SOCs, or if you have, some of those, normally you don't do it in-house, because of the resource constraints and other things. But if you have, SOCs managing it, and you expand the scope of the SOC to have to actually monitor these kind of devices as well, actually that addresses one of the resource constraint, because otherwise to start looking at every log and analyzing, even if AIs are there analyzing the logs, it's still going to throw out a lot of kind of potential threats, and you still need to look at that. And somebody who actually is technically qualified needs to look at that and start taking a decision on what needs to be done, or at least communicating to the right groups on, in terms of, there needs to be some action done. So I think that is a resource constraint that every organization will have, in terms of, do you have the capability to do that in-house, right? So you need to look at a SOC kind of environment is what I would think of. Again, it depends on how large you are, whether you want to do it internally, whether you want to do it, outsource is definitely a question that each organization has to answer individually, depending on, different parameters that they operate in. But that's definitely a challenge. And as I said, unless you work as a team and collaborate between security, IT, and the biomedical engineers, I don't think we're going to get a good answer, a good solution to this, because each of them are their own experts in their own areas.
No, that's a great point. I think collaboration is key in cybersecurity. At the end of the day, I think if you don't have collaboration, all the technologies and everything else is going to fall flat if people don't talk to each other within the organization.
Yeah.
I think it's a very
because even
point.
if you look at how a SOC works, it looks at all the different things. So it doesn't look at only your network behavior, but it looks at the server logs, it looks at the network behavior, it looks at the mail logs, or what's happening in your mail, and it looks at even endpoint, right? So the logs and activities from the endpoint security. You need to correlate this and then look at, okay, what could be a potential threat, and what kind of an attack might be coming your way. Right. So that's how the AI looks at these different logs. So it's definitely not one when you look at the log. Similarly, when you work as a team, it shouldn't be just one team looking at it, right? So this information has to go across, so that the right steps are done and right proactive measures are taken, and people are made aware on these things. So that's one exercise we do as internally as well, in terms of awareness. So there's an awareness in our induction when a new employee joins in. Not only we do an IT induction, there's a whole security, cyber security and other security part of it within the program, and that's a repeated program that we do as well on a regular basis, including for the senior management. So some of them covers these aspects as well. It's not just, I'm talking about the entire security. So that does cover, IOMT and other risks that could be there.
Sounds great. And thank you, Mr. Jalil. So with that, I think I have a lot more questions, but I think we're almost out of time. I think we end on a very positive note that people, collaboration, and processes are as important. And I think that's really what makes cybersecurity tick. It's people like you guys that really make and secure the hospitals. The technology is just an enabler, but you guys are really doing the true job. So thank you, everyone. Thank you guys for attending this panel and giving your esteemed views. Thank you, everyone, for listening in as well. So back to you, Karan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was a very insightful discussion. Thank you, Jalil. Thank you, Engineer Abdul Rahman, Mr. Baha, Mr. Padam, and Shankar. Next on, we move to another panel discussion, which is on cyber attacks in the healthcare industry. Going to be moderated by Ms. Sujata, who is the cybersecurity expert from Mimecast. Over to you, Sujata.
Thank you, Karan. Good morning to all of you. I'm Sujata Narasimhan. I work as a cybersecurity consultant with Mimecast, and my journey began with being an analyst in a SOC to transitioning building SOCs and now doing cyber resilience strategies across different organizations in the Middle East with Mimecast. So I'd like to welcome all of you. And today our topic of discussion is about cyber attacks in the healthcare industry. And we have some industry stalwarts over here joining us for the panel. I would like to request all three panels to introduce themselves, and as I take their names. Let's start with Mr. Jalil Rahman.
Hi, good morning again. I think I've already had an introduction in the previous session, but I'll just keep it short. So my name is Jalil Rahman. I'm the IT director for Prime Healthcare Group. I've been in the healthcare industry for more than 25 years now. And I think for those who have heard me before, this might be, a repeat. So thank you. I'll stop there.
All right. Mr. Padam Kafle.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Padam Sundar Kapne. I am heading IT and automation for Esther Hospitals UAE. Having more than 15 years in the healthcare IT experience, and I'm taking care about almost 6 hospitals in UAE.
Thank you. Mr. Himanshu Puri.
Yeah, good morning. Just want to make sure I'm audible.
Yep, loud and clear.
Right, yeah. So good morning again. I'm Himanshu Puri. I've had about 16 years of experience in the healthcare industry now. At the moment, I hold the responsibility of an acting CIO for King's College Hospitals, London. Prior to this, I've had some global experiences, parts of US, UK, Sweden, before I came to the Middle East. I worked in both private and public sectors. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And finally, Anthony Samir.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anthony Samir, head of cybersecurity unit in Ministry of Health in publication in Egypt. I worked for about 15 years now in the healthcare and medical emergency services till now.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for the quick introduction. Alrighty, without further ado, let's dive into our discussion for the day, right? So with the global healthcare industry itself, the danger COVID-19 actually posed is not just pertaining to the healthcare industry in terms of taking care of patients, but it's also progressed to the cyber attacks, right? So replete with the personal information, your financial information, and the medical records becomes an irresistible target to ensure that you're able to compromise healthcare industries. And that's where we've seen the whole healthcare cybercrime industry grow up to be a $13.2 billion industry, with an average price of one breach record to be about almost $500. And this is as part of the stats that we were able to pick up from the State of Email Security from Mimecast report for 2021. Which brings me on to our set of questions for the day, where I'm sure our audience would like to hear and understand your perspective of how we can actually deal with these cyber attacks. So what, according to you, would be the top threats that we can actually look out for in 2022? Let's hear it from Himanshu.
Yeah, well, you rightly mentioned the pandemic created a lot of pressure, not only to healthcare providers, but everybody involved in the healthcare industry, right? So I can think of some examples where pandemic created demands to implement technologies which were either in pilot phases or implemented in small scale, but the demand had to be that when they were implemented in a much larger scale. Now, this multi-phase implementation created a lot of complexity in the existing or pre-existing IT ecosystem. What led was a lot of confusion when it came to how all these pieces would come together, which in turn created a lot of potential threat areas and weak spots. I don't know whether it was Jalil or Baha or somebody else in the previous session, they mentioned about a ransom attack being one of the primary attacks happening in healthcare, right? So I don't have these stats, but I remember seeing a graph where it was at about 80 degree rise where ransom attacks were happened. Ransom attackers are becoming more and more sophisticated, right? So they are basically doing attacks in multi-staged attack. And we being more vulnerable at this pandemic, it's becoming easy for them to create those attacks now. The other thing which probably, as leaders in IT, we should be concerned is our healthcare providers are focusing on what they do best, providing care to the patients, which again demands a lot of change and swift decision making in making, in adapting to the change. We need to make sure that though we keep up with the demand, we do not create or we do not become more and more vulnerable. All right, so I think it's a two-phase thing. Ransom attackers are doing it in a more sophisticated manner. We are becoming more and more vulnerable because of the demand of the pandemic. And I think putting this together, we'll have to be a little more careful when we enter 2022.
Thank you. The same question to you, Padam. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I think Mr. Himanshu rightly mentioned the ransomware is the one very big threat we face in the past also, and in the going forward also. That will be the one thing that everybody or every healthcare provider is going to face. The second thing, what in my opinion, right, in the pandemic, many of the organizations, they moved their work style into digital work style, right? So from the paper to the digital data. So now the attackers know how to get the money, right? So it's just not the ransom. Ransom is something you are getting, getting people trapped and getting payback, and you are releasing the things. But there is a big threat of the data stealing, because the healthcare data now, any of the attacker, they can still mine data, the patient information or the patient diagnostic information, and that can be easily sellable to the other parties who are actually in the market as a competitor and in the market for the manufacturing of the different kind of the devices or the medicines or the many other things, right? So I think because when the pandemic came, everybody thought of moving digitalized, but there are, I think, very few organizations who has the security in place where application is purely secure, right? But then there are many organizations who still use the shared services, shared data centers, share the applications, where the data stealing is another big challenge, is what I am predicting going to happen in another couple of years.
Very, very valid points out there, Padam. Thank you. So, which actually, I think both of you highlighted clearly, saying that ransomware definitely tops the charts for all of us when it comes to cyber threats, specifically in healthcare industries, right? So, and I think it becomes all the more relevant in healthcare is because you are providing critical services to your patients to take care of them. And that makes you more vulnerable to actually help those cyber criminals extract that sort of money out of you. So as a cybersecurity practitioner, what's your strategy to combat ransomware, and what kind of backup and recovery plan does your organization have today? Let's hear it from Mr. Jalil.
Yeah, a good question, and it's actually an interesting question as well, because so going back to some of the things that we just discussed, as both of them, like Padam and Himanshu said, I think one of the reasons why we are seeing a bigger challenge in healthcare is because of the pandemic. There was a lot of acceleration to a lot of activities, and the way some of the transformations have been done. I could even say maybe some of us have lowered our guards when it comes to security, to turn around faster, and earlier, there was not these many channels for attackers. So now, because we want to be more digital, the channels and in healthcare as actually more is more. So there's definitely much more areas for attack. I think that's what we are seeing. And I think there was somebody had posted on the chat sometime back in the previous session saying that change management and I know some of these are important. That is definitely very important, because when you do that as temporary, you do something, it should be in your change management to go back and revert back according to your plan. Many of the times is that we leave these configurations open and we don't go back and close that out if it's something that was done temporarily. So these things needs to be taken care of. But when it comes to backup and your business continuity, I think we need to look at one of the things that we have looked at in terms of when ransomware became on the rise is can definitely tape backups is one of the things that, and because you're keeping it, that's one thing you can always go back into time. But there are backups. The challenge with tape backups is that it takes time to recover from tape. It takes time to even complete the tape backups, because we're talking about in healthcare, the data sets are very, very high. It's big volumes when it comes to radiology data and many others. So there are systems now which can take snapshots. and you can revert back to those snapshots quite fast. So I think you need to look at solutions like that, where you have multiple snapshots at different times of the day, and depending on if such an attack happens, which is your cleanest snapshot, how soon can you go back to that, right? So technically how you do it, whether you do it on tapes, you do it on snapshots, and there are different methodologies or different solutions available there. It really depends on what is your working environment and what suits you the best. But I think that's what you should really look at, in terms of ransomware, specifically to ransomware, if you're talking about. So that's the strategy we have looked at, and that always helps. I think here the key thing is how fast can you identify that you're on an attack, because that's quite important. Because if you take a longer time, you need to go back to a snapshot or a tape which is much more older, which means you lose a lot of data, and which can have a huge financial impact as well as an impact to the patient, right? Or you could have a bigger downtime. So that's quite key, I think. So two things what I would say is, are you really equipped to know that you are on an attack, and how early you can detect that. Secondly, what is a good set of data that you go? So your backups and testing your backups, your DRs and testing your DRs are very, very important. And when I say DRs, you also need to be capable, you're ready to be going to a specific point in time, because your most recent DR might also be, if you are having a real-time DR and you're syncing it in real time, both could be, a cyber attack of that sort could actually encrypt both of it. So you might need to have a cleaner snapshot a few hours earlier than before the attack. So I think that's quite key. As I said, there are different technologies which can give you that solution, but I think that's what you should look at the higher level.
Sounds good. Sounds good. How about you, Anthony? What would your take be around this?
Well, as all my colleagues here say, that ransomware is one of the most attacks that happens now, especially on the healthcare sector. And really, this due to the digital transformation and the high technologies, which is improving day by day. And also, as Mr. Jalil said, there are so much data in all healthcare sectors, which is huge data. So number one, you have to plan exactly how you will take the backups, how you will store it, how you secure your network, what will you do, and when will you do this when a cyber attack happening, especially ransomware. Of course, how you will control this attack, and number two, how you will secure your backups, because some ransomwares now is attacking even your backup system. That's why when you're designing or implementing a backup for your system, you have to manage how you will secure this. So in cyber attack, you will not lose even your backup. And of course, as Mr. G said, you have, when you designing the backup, you know how it must be in a smart way that you will retrieve it fast, so you don't have a very long downtime.
Thank you, Anthony. So to summarize, I think both of you mentioned very key point out there. So I think it's very important to ensure resiliency into your archiving and backup systems so that you can actually retrieve data if you were to be under attack or threat. And as Jalil mentioned, you also need to be able to first detect that you're under attack to be able to even trigger the consequent actions out there. So really good points out there. Moving on to our next question. I know we've had a big discussion around the Internet of Medical Devices just about in the previous session, but just a quick follow-up around this and a slight introduction to other collaboration tools around with it. So with the network capable devices or IoT devices making a big splash within the healthcare industry, we've also seen an addition or usage of collaboration tools like your Zoom, Slack, Teams. They've gone up in terms of usage in our in the healthcare industries, and mainly because it's easy to operate and it's enabled ease of use, right? So though these solutions actually provide ease of use, security from a security platform standpoint, it's not really thought out well. what security best practices do you consider as most effective for enterprises as you actually adopt to these new technologies, and what would be your take around it? Anthony, let's hear from you.
Of course, this all new technologies is now is measured depending on healthcare sectors, and many of them, especially after the pandemic. For instance, you mentioned Zoom or Teams or all online meetings. After the pandemic, especially in the medical learning, I see many people depending on this. And of course, in hospitals and the remote supporting units, they are trying to, with IoT, they are depending, especially in the pandemic. So securing this is a challenge because we all knew that IoT is still not mature in security because there are so many attacks for them. And to really understand this, we have to plan exactly which IoTs we will depend and how we will secure it. This is the first thing that we have to see. We can't just using Zoom without securing and giving awareness how to secure yourself, or even especially if we will talk about medical IoT devices, it will be more important to secure them from the attacks. So planning exactly what we'll do with IoT and how you'll move with them. Of course, the most important things, because many of IoT, we see that people using the same password without changing it. Many IoT using them without putting them in the enterprise or in a secured network, or even in easy accessible by public. So there are many steps that we have to be considered before implementing a high-level IoT solution.
Okay, thank you. So great points again there again. So you clearly mentioned saying that creating awareness in your organization definitely is a key thing so that users are well aware as to what information is actually important or critical to your organization. Similarly, securing the network itself so that you prevent any accidental leak of data is again a definite key point out there. All right. Now, during the past year, more than 2/3 of healthcare companies experience incidents where the brand was impersonated or misappropriated, which means creating of counterfeit websites and the likes of it, right? Now, more than 1 in 5 of these organizations were threatened in this manner, and this was seen across 10 or more separate occasions, right? So is your organization SOC equipped with these technologies and skills to be able to pick this up in-house, or is outsourcing a preferred method to actually deal with these incidents? Let's hear from Jalil.
Yeah, I think I did mention some time back in terms of outsourcing or doing it internally. I think that really depends on the organization and how you want to structure and what's your landscape within your organization. But I think what's more important is the right tools. Do you have the tools, and are the tools, I think these days these kind of tools in terms of how easy it is to use and whether you want to have that your internal team do it and external. So we have been evaluating quite a number of tools in this space. My view on what I've seen so far is the normal, SOC, what they manage, and the tools for managing all these different things that we talked about even before in IOMT. Those tools are different, and the ones that you talk about, your brand images and the social media and how that is being used for your brand images. Those tools are slightly different. So you might really want to have a different team to do that. And again, as I said, the call whether you do it internally or externally, I think is definitely dependent on your own internal models on how you're running your IT and how much you're doing internally and externally. But I think that the tools are important, and there are quite a number of tools these days, and there are different ways to do it. And I agree with you, that is a growing problem, because also because of the current demand in healthcare in terms of especially the healthcare professionals, there are a lot of fake ads going on, and a lot of misuse of these happening, and it can be both for fake job ads, or it can be bringing down a brand or a brand name impact. So I think that's something that organizations has to start looking into right now, because there's a good increase on these kind of cases.
Absolutely.
So I'm not sure if I give you an answer in terms of should we do it internally or externally, because I really wouldn't want to make a comment, because that's more of an organization's call depending on how they want to operate on it. But I think the importance that I want to really say is that it is important that this is done, and my view on how it is going to be done, I'm not sure if it's going to be part of the same SOC that is going to do your security, because the tools and skill sets required for that is slightly different from what your SOC might be doing currently.
Absolutely. But I think that's where, just to bring in one more point out, that was really helpful, Jalil. So, well, like with Mimecast too, we also do something around that, where we enable a SOC so that you can actually complement it, rather than having to invest in a separate team to be able to sit down and actually look through all of these threads. Because as you clearly mentioned, it requires a different skill set to be able to analyze impersonation attempts like brand spoofing. So great stuff. Alrighty. The next question that we have is this one. I'm going to go for you, Himanshu. Now, we've all heard about artificial intelligence. We've all heard about automation, machine learning. Now, are these just buzzwords and keywords? I see them making, again, a big entrance into medical industry as well, in terms of improving the patient care that we're looking at. How do you think it actually has an impact when it comes to cybersecurity? Do you think this is a solution to the shortage of skills? And how would you approach this?
Yeah, so I'll probably make one comment on how AI is changing patient care, right? I mean, and then we'll probably come to your main question of how it's going to solve our security landscape, if I may say. So yeah, AI again in healthcare is, I would say, very new. There's a lot that is happening in terms of R&D and how AI can be used in terms of providing better patient care. I mean, that could be a different discussion overall. However, I think Jalil also brought this in his previous question, that skill set and catering to the multiple attacks that we have is not something that we can manage end to end. As a provider, I mean, me as a hospital cannot afford a team of security personnels which is going to take care of everything for me. Now, one of the best approaches that I can do is automate some of it, right? So some pieces of automation will definitely add operational efficiency for me as a team, but it doesn't end there. If I'm a bigger organization, of course, machine learning, which is obviously more reactive, is just identifying your fingerprints, identifying the history of threats, reading from maybe across the globe, depending on which tool or application you've implemented, and takes a reactive approach, machine learning, right? And I think most of the big names in the cybersecurity market are talking about AI, but in my humble opinion, I think it's too early. We may be talking about some terms in AI, some terms in machine learning, but I think there's a long way to go. Now, does it solve some of our problems? Maybe. Does it solve completely? I don't think so.
Definitely. I think that's a general opinion that I've seen across the whole of industry when it comes to AI and the adoption of these little buzzwords that we are talking about, right? Do they actually solve for all the issues? Probably not, but they're definitely making in a great presence in terms of complementing and definitely enhancing how the technologies can actually help you mitigate some bits of the shortage in terms of skill sets or resources around that we would have. Great point there, Himanshu, which gets me on to the other aspect of problems now. More often than not, we always see employees actually becoming unwitting participants to attacks, right? So, which means either they compromise, they aid in probably lateral movement, and it could be because of a malware exposure or a phishing email that comes in. What measures should an organization actually take in to protect from these internal threats, and how would you approach towards it? Let's hear it from Padam.
Yeah, so very, very valid point. So if I look back 3 year before, so we are into the real same challenge, right? In the organization email, people used to receive the email in the name of CEO or the CFO, and then when they see the name, they not even bother to go inside the email and see what is the email address coming from, right? So then they used to take action. So we are the customer of Mimecast again. So Mimecast is our email security system. So 2 years before, we took a call and we implemented the email security system. So today, if I give you the percentage, there is almost 98% reduction in such the emails. So basically, I have the employee, of course, that the first perception here is employees are the first point of maybe enabler for the attacks, because we are dealing with this so many different kind of people. So people really don't have information security knowledge, or they don't know what is the phishing emails, they don't know what is the the cyber attacks. So we as an organization, what we have taken a step is there are the educational session, right? So whenever there is any such attacks happen, so we as a team IT, we are actually circulating email to all the employees, even if it is in the personal email. We are giving an example. See, if this and this kind of emails you are receiving even in your personal email, please avoid opening, or don't share your personal information, don't share your email and password, right? So this is the one these steps we have taken as an organization, and there are many other way to go. I'm sure, because the people are approaching in the different the way. I just don't want to take a name. So 2 days before, I have one of my colleague. He got the text from the M-Post. Its name is M-Post, and it was saying, okay, you need to pay 26 dirham. And because he was expecting some delivery to come through the M-Post, he immediately went and he entered his credit card detail, everything. Then suddenly he got to know the $1,000 was the charge, right? So in that also, when we check the web URL, that is really different. But people are really not looking into the URL or web address where they are navigating. So the education is the one thing I believe, so we make one the module, the cyber security is one of the module in our educational session and the refresher training. So each time when we go for the employee training, we always encourage them to look from where the email is coming, or from where the SMS or other things are initiated. Then only we advise them to take an action.
Okay, thank you, Padam. Jalil, how about your take around this? How do you approach to it?
As Padam said, I totally agree. I mean, the user training and the user part is one key thing. And I think what we also do, we do similar things, and what we also do is make sure that we're training them not only for the office environment, it's mainly protecting them from any threats, whether it be their home, their bank accounts. And so that it's actually given in that language, because then you get a better attention and better understanding of it as well. But what we also do is stimulations. So we do those simulations of and internally. So we do that on a regular basis, and then identify who's responding to these kind of spoofing or other emails, and see if they need further training. So that's something which is done, because however you do the trainings, I don't think people actually remember this and recall. And in their busy hours, when they have a lot of mails to catch up with, they just go around and click on links without going through the steps that we have told them that they need to go through before they click on a link which is suspicious. So that's one part of it. And of course, the tools that these days are getting more mature in terms of even identifying and blocking them. So the mail security also has an option where they tell them very clearly these are quarantined, and based on the level of risk, either it allows them to release it themselves, or some of them gets blocked and they have to come back to the administrators for us to release it, or the team to release it for them. So I think that is quite important, because if you keep everything blocked and it comes to, then the workload on IT increases. So we kept it in a the tool that we use does give an option where I can set that what level goes for the users to release it themselves, so it doesn't go to their inbox. It gives them a summary mail which tells them these are the ones quarantined for you, and these are blocked, and these are you can release it if you want, kind of a thing. And I think Himanshu did mention that a lot of AI is used in this. We still see a need for improvement there, but it is helping in a way. But yes, the false positives and other things are quite high, but I think it is going to improve. I think we're just seeing the starting phase of it. But I think it is helping, and we can see in the next few years, I think it's going to help much more there.
Definitely. I totally agree with you. So I think very key points made by both of you over here. Awareness is definitely key. Running phishing simulations definitely key to ensure that you identify who are your weak users out there, if they require additional training and actually coaching them further. And finally, I think most organizations, or mainly when we see with these emails being held, I think what people miss out is, you can't go on with an aggressive strategy by saying, I'm going to block everything. And actually give it on to your admins, because that's a lot of admin overhead, which that's not given a lot of thought about. So definitely, yes, you need to have that balance to be able to ensure that the users can release ones where they think it's an actual genuine mail. And so great points out there. I do have a follow-up around this. Is that so when employees are looking at awareness and all of this, they still are your first and last point of defense, right? And they still remain the weakest link in the chain, right? Now, how do you actually create your cybersecurity strategy so that your users actually feel involved with it? Is there something additional that you do to actually encourage your users to be able to think about cybersecurity awareness or education? Anthony, your thoughts around this?
Well, meanwhile, this is an important question, especially in the healthcare sector, because people in healthcare, healthcare workers, already busy with saving people lives and managing this. That's why they are not that friendly with the technology. They're feeling that it's you're making my life harder with entering technology. How about adding security layers and two-factor authentications, or all this stuff for his securities? It making his life as like a nightmare. That's why while you don't need just to deliver a security solution or giving him just awareness. You just make him feel that it's really so important for him and for the life, even for his patients, or for even his own safety. For instance, like the case that Mr. Benham said, that one who got stolen. So you may find anything like that. Meanwhile, also we delivering this awareness is as we in the Ministry of Health having some education protocols for doctors. We're delivering sometimes a cybersecurity like part of these courses, a security awareness, because digital transformation now is this is the era of digital transformation in the healthcare sector. So doctors have to know how to secure themselves at the same time that they know how to use these technologies and the new technologies. That's for doctors, but also for the admins, the people who not having, is not working in healthcare sectors, and at the same time they are not the technical persons. They have also to get this awareness themselves. For the administrators and the technical persons, developers, this is a different approach. This is more advanced awareness, because they sometimes being more malicious and more dangerous than the normal user. That's make it challenge, and that's why we are trying to make a different courses and trainings for these people in different to their tasks and their jobs.
Okay, actually, great point out there. So essentially trying to use different approaches to different target audiences so that they're actually able to grasp what this is and are able to take forward your own cybersecurity strategy ahead. That's a good point out there. The next question I have is around when you consider a new technology to mitigate any cyber attack or a threat that you would probably anticipate, do you look for a best-in-breed kind of scenario, or would you look for a solution that is going to blend in with your native security solutions and link in with these applications? What factors must one keep in mind while making this selection? Again, to you, Anthony, what would you think about this?
This is a very good question. First of all, we have to see the size of business which we are talking about, and how much is cost and which data we are securing really. Because if it's small or medium business, sometimes we think about it's okay, we can take some integrated security solutions. But when it came to enterprise or huge data, we have to design. I believe that we have to take something the best and bread, because no one can offer you everything that you actually need, and no one is good in everything. This is one thing important. Also, I am from the school which don't put all your eggs in one basket, so you don't lose everything in attack. Also, not all solutions is suitable, because when we're talking about enterprise, you are having some applications, the cloud or private cloud or on-prem even. This all is integrated, so you need a solution which will communicate and secure all this together. So we are not talking about one product which can do all this at the same time. You have to talk about many tools which really securing and giving you the best and the best things that can deliver the security for your information and for your data, and also working with your policies.
Definitely. I think the key point around here, again, you made a lot of valid points out there, but the key point I think that definitely stands out in all of this is, I think one definitely must take a look into seeing in whatever solution that you invest in needs to be able to talk to the other solutions in your environment. And that's when you're actually able to add that value to your organization, and which also I think echoes with what Mr. Jalil said earlier. If you're able to actually feed that to your SOC, which is one central monitoring system that's looking at all aspects of your security, nothing like it. I think that definitely adds a lot more value. All right, let's move on to the next question. Now, how do you think skill levels in the information security paradigm impact the overall InfoSec market dynamics itself? Now, I know we've discussed this briefly earlier, but do you think outsourcing a security function can actually be a way forward? And how does the size of an organization actually influence these decisions? Himanshu, your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, so healthcare as an industry itself is changing in a very drastic pace, right? And cybersecurity or anything related to security and technology in healthcare is probably evolving even faster than healthcare itself. And so with that said, the skills that we have at our end or from the security providers' ends is probably the most important aspect when it comes to keeping up with the space. One has to keep sharpening their axe, right? So it doesn't just apply for human resources, but also applies for technological resources. So, I mean, I won't comment too much on this part because we've been talking a lot about this since the beginning of our session. But I'll try and pick the tricky part of your question on the outsourcing. There's never the right answer when it comes to the decision of outsourcing. It's probably one of the most difficult decisions leadership have to take. And probably it's taught in every B school around the world, make or buy decision. So, it again goes back to what we briefly discussed in the beginning. It depends on the ecosystem you exist in. It depends on what your current state is. It depends on your expansion plans. It depends on the vision of the organization. But few things that I can probably highlight and which would help in making the decision is outsourcing probably brings in trained people quicker than what you can train your team. Considering that everybody has a budget restriction, you can't hire the entire world to take care of your organization. So when you outsource it, you get immediate access to skilled, depending again to who you're outsourcing to, you get immediate access to them. You get immediate access to tools which maybe you or your team is not aware of. We need to understand the organizations where we outsource security, it's their bread and butter, right? So it's their core business to basically be updated, have the right people, do the right thing so they can survive in their market span. It gives an opportunity to, monitor, track, prevent, do all of that 24/7. There are big organizations who you can outsource to, who will do these things 24/7. You may not have that skill set, you may not have the number of people, you may not have the right tools to do that for you around the clock. Right? So these are some advantages of it. However, I can think of maybe one or two disadvantages of outsourcing. If you would like to have the control over your systems, you want to have control over your data, you don't want to share it, maybe regulations don't permit you to do some things, depending on which part of the globe you are. This could be one challenge when you're outsourcing. You have to be really careful when you define the terms and scope of work when it comes to outsourcing these things. Expansion plans and other things is another criteria when it comes to outsourcing, because the organizations that provide outsourcing or security as a service have a very stringent contract policies. Going back and revising them, working on them, it's just too much of an operational expense, too much of headache to do that if you're expanding on a more, if your pace of expansion is very high. So, I'm just throwing out pros and cons on both the aspects. I think we discussed earlier that this is never an easy decision. It's something that has to be taken on an individual note.
Definitely very, very valid points out there, Himanshu. And especially, I think it's more relevant in the Middle East when it comes to regulations and the data that especially the healthcare industry itself has to comply with. It becomes a lot more challenging for any organization to take a call on how you would be able to outsource, and the contracts and the whole likes of it becomes really, really frustrating. So yeah, definitely. Now, which brings on to my last question now. We've seen the cyber attacks evolve over these last 20 months. We've seen technologies and we've seen introduction of new technologies and the ways healthcare industries are trying to cope with those technologies and ensure a balance between cybersecurity and providing a business continuity to your patients and your healthcare systems. What, according to you, is your vision of a smart security solution that will help you achieve a certain goal or a certain solution for your organization? So when I say smart, I would want my solution to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant and time-oriented. And I'd like to hear all of your opinions. I'm sure the audience would like to hear the same. So let's start with the one on top of my screen. So let's hear from you, Padam.
Yeah, so I think this is very much the time demanding today. So because when we are talking about the cyber security, so just I recall that 2 days back I had a call from the regulatory, the DHA, and they are talking about can you please introduce your cyber security officer, right? The information security officer. So now the data security, especially in the Middle East, because in the Dubai or the UAE, they are very, very particular. Of course, it applies in all the countries where the patient data security is always in the prime, right? So having a smart network, the security solution would be, would prevent most of the challenges, what we have discussed now and before. So having the AI-based solution which can predict, right? So we need a prediction. We don't need the prevention at a moment. We need a prediction. If the solution can give us the alarm, right? If there is something going unusual, so please have a look. So that will be more than enough for us to have a prevention of our the data security, right? So in my opinion, the smart security is something that we are in the demand.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear from Himanshu.
Yeah, I just piggyback on what Mr. Padam just mentioned, right? So it's I think smart security system would be you're not just predicting. If you cannot remain reactive anymore. Right? It's time that we start becoming more proactive. It's time that we don't waste our operational, we don't do an overhead of our operational expenses. So the identification and the steps for prevention should be spot on. We just can't have too many false alerts. It should be cost effective. One should understand that healthcare, the core business is not security. The core business is to provide care, right? So we can't keep investing a lot into security. So it should become a model which complements our core business. That also brings in more onboarding from our C-suite, our board of members, our financiers, investors, right? So it's a combination of centralization. It's a combination of easy maintenance. It's a combination of preventive and proactive care. It's a combination of financial impacts to our existing books, right? So if all of this comes in together, and if we're able to make this work as an entire industry, it's not just one organization, but also the security providers will also benefit from this. And for me, it's a multidimensional view when it comes to a smart security system.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's hear from you, Anthony.
Well, as we all said, and as all my colleagues said, there is no certain checklist that you have to do. But before choosing benchmarks that we will check or what the solutions that we will follow, I believe that you have really to know what exactly that you are expecting from the solutions that you are seeking for. And yes, hello?
Hello, Anthony. Sorry, I think we lost you there for a moment.
Okay, now it's okay?
Yes, it's much better now. Thanks.
So, as I said, that you have to understand exactly what solutions and what you're expecting from your network architecture and what your solutions that you're having now and what you're expecting to secure. That will make the decision for you is more easily to pick up the solutions that you are expecting for.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, so I hope this.
Yep, that's definitely. Thank you so much, Anthony. I think the last one, Jalil, your closing statements here.
Yeah. No, I think in terms of making it smart, and I agree with what others have said, and I think it's a holistic. One piece I want to add on here is I think we should not look at security as a wrapper around everything that we do. I think we need to embed security in every initiative that we bring in, right? So that's one thing. I think the older practice have been like, do everything that you want, and then you talk about security on top of it. That also then has a different impact in terms of the cost and getting the budgets. And so I think we need to embed security in every activity that we do. The way things are going, it is now very important that we embed it in every activity, in every initiative. So that's one part of it. Second part of it, I think, is interoperable systems is required, especially when you're talking about SOC and monitoring. And Himanshu mentioned this. I agree with him in terms of my personal view is, yes, we are not here. We are not going to be able to do it in-house. It has to be an outsourced kind of a service. And if you want to really feed in all that into that SOC, you should be having tools which are interoperable. I do agree with Anthony as well in terms of maybe it's not, you don't want to put everything in one basket. Because you might not want to have the same vendor or same technology all around, but if it's different, then you should be keeping in mind that these are interoperable. I think that's key for you to have that smart kind of security structure or framework. And the last piece I would say is this is a journey. So I think it never ends. Because it's going to get bigger and bigger, and as I said, it's going to be embedded in everything that you do. So I think security is just given a part and parcel of everything that you do. Then there definitely new things going to come, and I think we need to be able to adopt that and move on. Because when we talked about very earlier days, we were people were just saying, do you have email security or not? I mean, nobody talks about having email security or not now. People talk about do you have simulation available in that? Can you do those additional features? So it grows, and I think that's what is going to happen as we it's going to mature, it's going to grow, and how good are you going to adopt and change that and make that change management depends on what is your infrastructure, what is your strategy that you put in place in terms of adopting and moving on, because this is going to go on. I don't think we're going to see a one-time investment and stop there.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So I think to summarize all of your points, I think I've got some really great key points out there. So a smart security solution definitely must have prediction capabilities. To begin with, it's got to be proactive, has to ensure ease of use. Preventive, definitely, I think that goes without saying. Has to have built-in security than actually building in security as an afterthought, definitely, and interoperability. So I think all really great points, all of you, in terms of putting together a smart security solution. A little bit of a tall order, I would say, but I think we are getting there as technologies evolve. So yeah, great points out there. I think there's one question in the question and answer chat room. Just let me quickly read that out, and I'd like to see if any of you would like to take that up. Information security is not a checklist that you follow. It involves certain criteria and threshold that defines the solutions. How can such benchmarks be defined to justify budgets and ensure ROI? Any of you would like to take this one on?
So
yeah, go ahead, Padan. Go ahead.
Yeah. So in my opinion, right, so when the call comes for the security, so especially in our organization, what we follow is when the action to be taken in terms of the data security, right? We don't see into the ROI, because ROI we can get. So if you are not secure, right, even if you are getting a ROI, there is no use of that, right? So if we are not able to secure our patient data, then how we go into the market, right? So what will be our brand name into the market? So if we can ensure the patient that if you come and do the treatment in our hospital, your data will be absolutely secure, right? Your data, no one will have access other than you or the authorities, right? So if we are making sure that to the people, I think that is our ROI, right? So in my opinion, having a security budgets or securing your infra or environment shouldn't look for the ROI.
Okay, Jalil, you had some points to add on that.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. I think in terms of what Padam said, that what we also internally do is it's more of a risk register and how you analyze your risks and how you actually because normally if you have it in the risk and if it's discussed on the senior management, which needs to be, then you put out a plan of which one you need to mitigate, and what is the business impact if you don't mitigate this. So the budget comes from there, right? That's one piece of it. In many countries I've seen in my other global experiences as well, there's also a regulatory requirement, right? Which is also getting mature here in Dubai. I think Padam also mentioned to it in what DHA and Ministry of Health and others are doing here. So this also becomes a regulatory requirement where there could be penalties and others, if you don't meet some of those things. So I think this is where it really comes from. I don't think this would be treated as an ROI. It's more of a risk mitigation than an ROI calculation. Right. And I think Himanshu did mention this, that we don't have all those luxury of different budgets. It's how wisely you do it, and what are the right things you do. I mean, you need to be prioritizing what are your right risks, and which risks you need to be actually mitigating on. I think that's how I would answer that question.
All right, thank you, Jalil. All right, anybody else? Okay, cool. All right, so I think with that, I think we come to the end of our session over here. I'd like to quickly take a moment and thank you all for joining in, taking time out of your busy schedules and joining in for our panel discussion. Thank you and have a great week ahead. Over to you, Karan.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So that maintaining cybersecurity in today's technological-driven world has become so vital to the health of any business. So with that, we come to the end of the session. This is off topic, but UAE has just announced from January 1st onwards, it's going to be a Monday to Friday, and Saturday, Sunday is going to be a new weekend. Thank you everyone for your time. Thank you, Jalil. Thank you, Sujata. Thank you, Himanshu. Thank you, Anthony. And thank you, Padam. Thank you to the audience as well for taking your time out to participate. The next edition is going to be the 6th edition. It's going to be held in Dubai, and it's going to be a physical event. So we will reach out to everyone and keep you posted for that. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.